This is my audience. Who wouldn't want to know the life behind one of America's most influential speakers? Someone who helped America see past one's skin color. A person whose voice carried over 200,000 people, preaching his most famous words of, "I have a dream." Someone who was arrested 30 times trying to gain equality for African Americans, who was the youngest male to date to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. According to an article on 20 interesting facts about Martin Luther King, a person who has an entire day celebrated by all 50 states in America, just to celebrate his life and the things he did for this country. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and his life began on January 15, 1929. Martin Luther King lived a rough but successful 39 years, from growing up under a minister's rule after later second-guessing his father's religious beliefs, to preaching to thousands of people and making a name for himself as one of the most inspiring speakers in American history. He was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin was the second born of three, Michael, Alfred, and Willie. Notice I said Michael and not Martin, because his original name was Michael, named after his father. When he was really young, they both, him and his father, got their names changed to Martin after his father went to Germany in 1931, in admiration to historic theologian Martin Luther. Dr. King was born from two loving parents, Alberta and Martin Luther Sr. His father was a minister and encouraged Martin Jr. to become the same. Martin grew up into a financially secure middle-class family, says an article on the background of his childhood under SparkNotes. Therefore, they were able to receive better education than the average child of their race. King did not experience a lot of racial discrimination at a young age. One of his first encounters was when school started and his playmates went to different schools and their parents would not allow Martin to come over and play anymore. His father was strictly against racial discrimination, and not because it was his race being discriminated, but because it was an act against God's beliefs. Growing up being a typical young boy, Martin did give his parents a hard time. At the age of 12, Martin's grandmother passed away due to a heart attack, and while this happened, Martin was at a parade against his parents' say-so, and came home to this terrible news. What seemed to be the act of attempting to commit suicide, he went upstairs and jumped from the second-story window of his house. Getting a little bit older, Martin was headed to become a minister, like his father always wanted. While he was a valedictorian of his class, he did well all throughout school. He still managed to rebel against his father's more conservative influence, says a biography on Martin Luther King, by drinking beer and playing pool. Martin attended a public school in Atlanta, Georgia, Booker T. Washington High School. He skipped both the 9th and 12th grade, and without formally graduating high school, he entered Morehouse College at 15 years old. He studied sociology and considered studying law or medicine, against another act against his father did not want, but still supported him. At Morehouse College, he was said to be an underachiever and narrow-minded. While there, he became influenced by a friend of his father's, Benjamin E. Mays. To change his thoughts back to the church, King decided that social action was his calling and religion was his best choice towards being socially active. He furthered his studies at Crozer, which was the first integrated school he attended. He became the school's first African-American student body president and graduated with a bachelor's and top of his class at that. He took his final course of education at Boston University and received his PhD in 1955. He took his first job as a minister of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. There he became a civil rights activist leader, and what you could say was the beginning of his life as an inspiring speaker was the Montgomery bus boycott. He was voted to run, which was successful. From here on, King led many boycotts, sit-ins, and marches. He was followed by so many. He was arrested 30 times, and not once did that stop him from being the leader he was. He was hated, threatened. He was mistreated and mentally abused, but he stayed strong, all to lead up to his final days. On April 4th, 1968 was a day that many tears shed, many hearts broke, a day where the hope and faith that was so strong fell down so quickly, all in the matter of 2 seconds. One gunshot and one last breath. Martin Luther King was assassinated by James Earl Ray in Memphis, Tennessee, outside of his motel room. Many riots broke out nationwide. President Johnson declared April 7th a day of mourning, according to SparkNotes. 168 riots total broke out, 3,000 arrests were made, over 20,000 injuries, and 55,000 soldiers were called in to restore order. His funeral had 750 of the 500,000 people who appeared to pay their respects. Some interesting facts related to his death was not many knew that Martin Luther King smoked cigarettes, and after he was assassinated on the motel's balcony, they found a cigarette butt in his hand and cigarette pack on his body, and they got rid of it before ambulance people even saw. Another interesting fact is that his autopsy showed that he had the heart of a 6-year-old, although he was 39 years old, due to stress throughout his life. Martin was the youngest male to receive the Nobel Peace Prize and gave all the money he received, $54,000, to the civil rights movement. From the day he was born until the day he was assassinated, Martin Luther King's story was one for the books. His journey through the civil rights era is something that should be taught all over the world. The story of his life was very inspiring and shows that if you work hard enough to accomplish your dreams, they can come true. Martin Luther King Jr. went through a lot of hardships in his life, but that is what it took for his voice to be heard. He showed many people that just because you are raised a certain way, strictly or not, you will have a choice and opinion of your own. You should do whatever you feel is right regardless of anyone's thought. Martin says, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.